Whew. We's back. And we doing some wine wars, I guess, since it's like right next to us. Wait, this is not the exit. Ooh, books. You know what? Let's do something I've been meaning to do for a while. Biography of the Vampire Regis from the Quill of Dandelion. One of the most extraordinary individuals I have encountered during my numerous adventures at Geralt's side was the vampire known as Regis. To be precise, he was known as Emile Regis Roelec Tezif Godefroy. By his own reckoning, he was 428 years old and was the descendant of the unfortunate beings trapped in our world during the conjunction of spheres. You are surely thinking, dear reader, about catechins and alps and other such monsters and are pondering how it was the Witcher who, it must be admitted, is a slayer of monsters, came to keep such company. I must here explain that Regis was a higher vampire, a creature which physically did not differ all that much from a man. Higher vampires are also much more powerful than their wild confreres, whatever, and their regenerative abilities significantly outpace those of anything else you could encounter or can imagine. But it is not because of his outer appearances or inner strengths that Regis became our dear companion. True, he could be pretentious and rather pompous in his frequent length perorations, but one would be hard-pressed to find him in haughtiness usually present in higher beings. Regis valued human life dearly and refused to kill unless forced to do so. As he once confessed, higher vampires do not, in fact, need to drink blood at all in order to survive. They treat it somewhat as we treat alcohol. A rough grasp of this dynamic might be given to you by the fact that when we met, Regis had been abstinent for years. He never revealed to us why he decided to join our search for Ciri. He had never met her before, nor did he live to see her. Nor did he live to see her. He died at Stig Castle during the battle against the Mad Mage Vilforts, who was responsible for the whole affair. He died for a cause which he surely did not fully understand, but he did it to defend those he held dear and simply because it was the right thing to do. I shall always remember him as a rural surgeon reeking of herbs. That is how he came to us during our first encounter at Fencarn, Necropolis, when he treated me and my companions to a fantastic brew made from mandrake root. Wherever you are, my friend, bottoms up. Okay, don't need those. Alright, this book. History of Corvo Bianco. Corvo Bianco's origins have been lost to the mists of time. We have only a bare legend about the vineyard being founded by the owner of the Pomerol estate's son, who had been disinherited and exiled with only a Carvenaire sapling to his name. The modern history of Corvo Bianco begins with Master Boleas, who settled in the vineyard in his elder years. As a young man, Boleas had headed a division of sappers which fought in the far north. For his service, he was made a noble and awarded a great deal of coin. He took to rebuilding Corvo Bianco with great zeal. He dedicated the most energy to planting a beautiful garden for his wife, thus starting the craze for the use of herbs which swept Toussaint at the time. After his wife, Boleas' second love was the olive tree, which is why he planted a great many of them all over Corvo Bianco. When Boleas' wife died, life lost its savor for him and he began to think constantly about death. He sold his estate to Count Crespi, and the very day he signed the last piece of paperwork, he died. All right. Most faithful Golem or read that one. Noble Olandra. Okay, yeah, we know Olandra. Paladin's Hymns. The collective verse of... Yeah, that one we're not reading because we don't like these. Civil War in Toussaint. The year 781 marked the final end of the Elven rule in Toussaint, the closing of an era that lasted over 1,500 years. Oh, yep, read that one already. The little peasant who confounded his lord. Winter was on its way, and the lord once again started to think about what to do to oppress his people even more. One morning, at the crack of the cockerel's crow, he rode out into a village in a carriage pulled by two black horses. With his trusted page at his side to act as a scribe, The earth was sodden and a cruel mud covered the road, so the lord, not wanting to dirty his shiny new boots, stayed in the carriage and sent his page to do his bidding. When they arrived at the village, the page dismounted from the carriage. A paper covered in thick ink clutched his hands. He nailed the paper to the first hut he saw, and since he did it with a hammer, a peasant boy named Reuben soon opened the door to see what was the matter. The boy was 12 years of age and had a straw-colored shock of cowlicked hair and a freckled face with ruddy cheeks. "Well, what do you want?" grumbled the page, looking at Reuben's shirt, which was covered in the same filth as everyone else in this village. "Well, nothing rightly," Reuben shrugged. "Thing is, sir, this here's me home." "Then get inside it." The boy wasn't scared, and instead stood on his doorstep looking at the piece of paper. "What's this, sir? A letter?" The boy asked. "Read it and find out for yourself," the scribe said, growing angrier, though Reuben didn't seem to notice. "Afeared I can't, sir. Don't know how." What the devil's taking you, scribe?" the lord hollered. He was still sitting in his carriage and hadn't heard the conversation. Clearly, he was growing bored. "The whelp says he doesn't know how to read." "Aye, 'cause he don't," Reuben confirmed, and took 2 steps toward the carriage with his bare feet sinking into the muddy gray muck. "And the ones inside, do they?" questioned the lord. "Where'd they reckon they'd learn to read a thing? Where'd d'ye reckon they'd learn a thing like that, m'lord?" The peasant asked, perplexed, for he had always thought great lords like that must surely know everything. "So who in your village does know how to read?" asked the lord, growing even more irritated. "Not no one, m'lord, scribe," the lord said, leaning far out while leaning on his carriage door. "Could you explain to me how I am to force my declaration on people who do not know how to read and write?" "I don't know, my lord," the scribe said, taking a step back, as if he expected the lord to jump out of the carriage and assault him. The fault was not his, but the lord was in the habit of beating a scribe when he was angry, no matter the cause. Civil War. The lives of famous bankers. Amadeus Cianfanelli. Amadeus Cianfanelli, or whatever his name was born to a family of humble traders, but thanks to hard work and innate entrepreneurial talent, by the age of 50 he had already established a flourishing bank. It soon became clear, however, that for the ambitious Amadeus, this was just the beginning. He quickly expanded the business, establishing Cianfanelli Bank branches in Kovir and Nazir, and even sending a representative to Zerkania. He became known for treating each and every customer as an old friend and cared deeply about what became of others' coin. He thus created a wide range of banking products to better allow him to look after the property of an increasingly greater number of customers. He coined the phrase that up until today has served Cianfanelli as an advertising slogan and motto: "We look after your coin as if it were our own." Lara Boren and the Creganen of Lodbrok. Love knows no bounds, the saying claims. History knows no better proof of this adage than the romance between Lara Doran and Creganen of Lod. She, a powerful elven sage, bearer of the elder blood, promised to the great Avalok. He, a human mage of great talent and humble birth. She, able to live for centuries, if not millennia. He, likely to live no more than 60 years and 10, like each of us. They should have hated each other, scorned each other. Instead, they burned for one another with powerful love. Heedless to the war raging around them, to the condemnations and curses raining down from them on all sides, they led a humble and happy life. Soon, Lara was with child. A babe born of Lara and Creganen might have joined the best of both races, united them at long last. Alas, this was not to be. Humans considered Gregorin a traitor and a renegade. They demanded he abandon Lara. When he refused, they decided to murder them both. Creganen died while Lara, still heavy with child, escaped with her life. She ran to Tredagor to beg succor and support from Sero, Queen of Redania. What then came to pass? Here, elven and human sources diverge, presenting 2 irreconcilable versions. According to the chroniclers of the Anshade, her pleas did not soften the stony Dwan's hearts, the hearts of merciless and cruel humans. When Lara, pleading for mercy, if not for her, then at least for her child, clutched onto the door of the royal carriage, the queen ordered her maimer to strike with the sword and cut off her fingers. That night, crushed by a fierce frost, Lara breathed her last sigh on a hill in the woods, giving birth to a daughter whom she protected with the fading embers of her own warmth. Human legends, however, have Sero saying, "Ask not me for grace, ask instead those whom you have harmed with your magic." Brave you were when you wrought those foul deeds, brave be you now when the pursuit of justice nears. Your sins are not in my power to forgive. In reply, Lara said, My doom is at hand. My doom is at hand, but yours, Queen, is also nigh. Remember, Lara Doran, in that terrible hour, Queen, remember her death and her curse, and know that my curse will hound you and your seed. To the 10th generation will it damn your line. Wherein lies the truth cannot be said. Both versions are surely false, for both seek to blacken their enemy. Sad is Lara's end. The hate The hate between races which Cregan wished so badly to end is now so strong that its darkness forever shall obscure the truth of her fate. The house, noble houses, Sangre, Salvarez, the Alliance. Yeah, we don't really care about the noble houses. Curious custom to the sons. Where have all the heroic and selfless? Yep, read that one. Of fire and stone. Sphera Mundi is divided into 4 elemental planes: the plane of earth, the plane of water, the plane of air, and the plane of fire. Earth and water together form our planet, around which circulates air. Above earth stretches the aether, fiery air, or in short, fire. Past fire lies the subtle sidereal heavens known collectively as the fermentum, which are of a spherical nature. This is where the erratica sidria, drifting stars, and fixa sidera, fixed stars, reside. The elemental planes are inhabited by creatures which can be summoned by the use of magic. They are gnomes, swift salamanders, and ondinites, all of which belong to the category commonly known as elementia. Really? Gnomes can be summoned? I thought there were gnomes already. I have like a gnomish sword. I've run into gnomes. Flutters are a vile and unsophisticated variety of vampire. They are unable to run properly, cannot bear direct sunlight, and are generally none too wise. Some flutters hunt alone, whereas others prefer to attack in groups. Perhaps it is a matter of instinct. Having sensed blood, they assess the size of the victim and, if necessary, summon their kin. The only strong suit of these leeches is their ability to leap towards a potential victim. Fighting a flutter is no different than fighting any other kind of bloodsucker. Apart from the obvious means such as garlic, buckthorn, and sunlight, a hunter should stock up on silver. A lit torch may be helpful as well. Alright. What is this one? My last thoughts before I succumb to sleep. My last thoughts before falling asleep. If there is no death, does life exist? Hate is a very interesting feeling. I have noticed that people improve themselves with it to great effect. That is actually really neat. That quote right there. Write that down sometime. Sometimes I would like to stop thinking. If we were to create God as the humans have, what would he be like? People justify bad deeds by good intentions. I am not sure if there is a greater idiocy. I would drink the freshly squeezed blood of an infant. I know I can't, but I hope that the velvety taste will send me to sleep. I strive to live like a person, and it means that I have ceased to feel good among people as well as among my own. Maybe I made a big mistake. I've always wanted to write, I'm very tired and fuck it all. People don't think about the present. They usually remember old times or worry about the future. I have a feeling my friend Detlef will die. I am sad. Volume 2. Read that one. The Story of the Fortress. Yep, read that one. Okay, well, I haven't read this one. In the sun-drenched Duchy of Tesson, near the Coronado Vineyard, lay the estate of Baron Hubert Ballast. On honorable knight in the service of Duchess Ademarta. Herbert served as a knight-errant for many years, and vows were his greatest delight. He swore to do things so grand they curdled blood of other knights. The Duchess finally recognized his courage, and not only awarded him with an honorary title, but also granted him land. Hubert Hubert thus had a place of his own on which to settle down and wait till his time came with dignity. He could find himself a wife and sire descendants, as befits every self-respecting hero. Unfortunately, once he had laid down his sword and shield, Baronet Ballast began to seek other diversions. And so he indulged in games of card and dice, and at times even bet on dogfights. Then one day, when fortune abandoned him, he decided to bet not 1 or 2 gold pouches, but in fact his family's entire estate, and he lost everything. To add to this already unhappy state of affairs, Hubert Ballast, who was not one to take defeat lightly, flew into a fit of blind passion, donned his armor, and enlisted at once. Fortune, alas, smiled no more favorably upon him at war than it did at play, and an arrow found its way to Herbert's leg. Then he died of gangrene. So he was a knight until he took an arrow to the knee. Okay. I see you, game. A code duello. Oh, that's the code. The Ducal Chronicles 2nd Amendment edition. Ducal Chronicle. Tome... Wait, what the fuck is the L in the Roman numerals? No, that's not 10. Was it 20? 30? I don't know what the fucking L was in Roman numerals. In the month preceding the celebration surrounding the festival of the Vat, at the ducal couple and a delegation of notables embarked on a neighborly visit to the court of Queen Calenth of Sintra. The visit had both a social and political dimension, for the Duchess was hoping Queen Calenth would follow the dictates of international protocol and reply with a visit of her own, preferably during the above-mentioned festival, thus gracing the celebration with her royal presence. The ducal couple was accompanied by their daughter, Henrietta. It is worth mentioning here that the infant is sprouting like a beanpole, and it shall not be long before it will be necessary to find her a husband. Time will surely add to her charms. As for character and imagination, she is not lacking in quality in either. Natural Born Killers, a study of Gargans book. Gargans are commonly described as lesser vampires. Is that a hard R? Gargan. I'm gonna go Gargans. Do not be misled by this terminology, however, for they are extremely dangerous and devious creatures which men stand no chance of defeating, even when greatly outnumbering the beasts. Gargans possess a highly developed sense of smell. Once they are on your track, you are as good as dead. They have a special taste for adolescents and children, hence the belief that this vampire seeks out only virgins. There is a grain of truth in that, yet it is not a matter of sexual purity, but of the level of blood pollution. The younger, the healthier the victim, the tastier a tidbit it makes for the Gargan. The Ducal Chronicle, 1st edition. Oh, this would have been nice. I have this one earlier. In the month preceding the celebration surrounding the Festival of the Vat, the ducal couple and a delegation of notables embarked on a visit. Wait a minute. Oh, so it does change. Siana should not prove a problem. Suitors. Okay, so it just changes a little bit there. Nothing major. Me, My Panther, and I by Abigail Lett. As a young adept of the art of medicine, I was once asked by my mentor, Nurse Hatchet, to gather some herbs needed for poultices. I set out for the woods and sought ripe specimens, when all of a sudden a juniper shrub began to swish and shake. It must be a Leshen or another monster of some sort, enraged by my insolent theft of the forest treasures, I thought. Luckily, it turned out to be a beast that was no Leshen, but a little panther. Full of pity, I decided to share the bread and dried meat I brought in my bundle with the cub. From that moment on, I brought the panther something to eat every day, and every day it waited for me next to the juniper. A year passed, and the panther grew so big I was afraid to approach it, so I would just throw bits of meat and leave as quickly as possible. Then a sickness left me bedridden for a month. When I was finally back on my feet, I went to the woods, to the juniper shrub. My beloved panther, now as big as a horse, only roared from afar. I bolted. Panthers are beautiful animals, and they are quite fascinating as well, but I value my life, and that is that. Well, that was a useless book. Ithlin's Prophecy. Behold, for nigh is the time of the sword and axe, the age of the woven blizzard. Nigh is the time of the white frost and the white light, the time of madness and disdain. I cannot pronounce these elven names unless I hear them. The world shall perish amidst ice and be reborn with a new sun, reborn by the elder blood of Hen Isha, of a planted seed. I share, Hen I share, a seed that will not sprout but bursts into flames. Estuathes. So shall it be. Watch for the signs. And I say unto you what signs they shall be. First the elves will run with the blood of the unshed, the blood of the elves. Kikimores. Truths and myths about the insidious insects. Observation has shown that Kikimores are the most organized and hierarchical of the post-conduction insectoids. Their workers follow orders of warriors. They are all subject to the queen, which seems to control the behavior of all members of the swarm, even though she remains hidden deep in the ground. Considering the small size of the species' cerebral ganglia, which functions as a brain, one might hypothesize the Kikimores possess sort of a hive mind, making them similar to ants. The wondrous world of insectoids, a supplement. Let it be known that there exists no being more wondrous than the giant centipede. Verily I say unto you, blind is he who fails to see their evolutionary advantage over all other species. After all, is there another creature so perfectly adjusted to living under the ground as well as on top of it? Another being able to pelt through passages invisible to the naked eye and construct stunning subterranean cities? Verily I say unto you, let us bow before the divinity of 1,000 limbs before it is too late. Let us shelter behind the chitin thorax, on which the swords of our enemies shall break. Let us bring nourishment for the great mandible. Let us devote ourselves to these wonderful giants, these titanic insectoids, these scolopendromorphs. Let us resemble Shelmars, their humble servants, who make it possible for this grand species to become even stronger and even greater. Our toil shall be rewarded, I promise you this. Praise the great mandible. The adventures of Spiky and a white called Franconi. Once upon a time, in a small mountain near the Vermentino vineyard, there lived a white named Franconi. Amiable by nature, he spent his days in the mound, cooking various kinds of soups. Not that he was particularly fond of soups, it was his beloved pet, a Barghest named Spiky, that slurped them up greedily. And so they sat there side by side, Franconi the white and Spiky the Barghests, cooking soups made of decaying bones, withered weeds, and, if they managed to swipe some metal, nails, their favorite delicacy. One day, Franconi heard two gravediggers talk about a certain man of wealth who kept various kinds of cheeses in his cellar. A cheese soup sounded like a delectable treat to Franconi, so he snuck into the noble cellar and stole the biggest cheese wheel there was. When he got home, Franconi started slowly melting the cheese in his favorite pot. The stench was so awful, Spiky ran off and refused to go back to the mound. To add to the already terrible state of affairs, the smell of the cheese permeated everything, so Spiky and Franconi had to pack their things and move. The moral of the story is simple. If you're cooking a cheese soup, make sure the cheese you choose is not blue. Very important story there. Journal of Research into Archospores. Day 1. I have stumbled upon an extremely curious species, the venomous archospore. So far, I have managed to distinguish 3 of its varieties, distinguished by colors: green, the most common; yellow, and finally... Wait a minute, I already read this one, didn't I? Research. I think I've reached a point where observers. It may also take... Yeah, I read this one. Okay. Not character, not meditation. Bestiary. Elementa. Moreau's Goblin. Long years of solitary study led to make mages somewhat eccentric. As the years passed, lay people began to irritate them more and more. They are dense, unreliable, disobedient, and determined not to understand the gravity of the mage's work. They display emotion when they should show discipline and self-mastery. No wonder mages have long considered the best companions to be artificial constructs they have considered the best... They have long considered artificial constructs they themselves bring to life and designed to follow their rules and meet their needs. Professor Moreau was no exception in this regard. His golem was his dutiful servant and companion, and in good times and bad. Moreau's golem was also excellent guardian, massive, unyielding, and devilishly strong. All in all, he was a tough nut for a witcher to crack. So we did that one, did that. So vampires, Alps. Vampire oil, moon dust, black blood, Irden. Looked like a Bruxa, but that was no Bruxa. Alps are vampires that resemble Bruxa in appearances. They are called phantoms by some, a name which fits well enough, for like phantoms they haunt and torment men. They usually take on the form of a woman, though they can also appear as animals. They are most often found prowling near villages. They attack at night and are most active when the moon is full. Alp saliva can make one fall asleep, and when applied to a sleeping man can invoke horrible nightmares. Some suggest they are the cause of legends about men who go to sleep healthier and are found in the morning white as snow, not a drop of blood in their veins. In combat, Alps display supernatural speed and incredible, even by vampire standards, stamina. One must aim one's sword with great precision, for the Alps are unequaled in the art of evading blows. The Yrden sign is recommended, for it weakens the Alps' defenses. Another strategy is to drink the black blood potion. For Alps suck the blood of their victims to deprive them of strength and regenerate their own powers. Unlike Bruxa, Alps cannot turn invisible. Yet like Bruxa, they emit a shrieking noise whose shockwave can incapacitate. Their greatest asset is their agility, and they can leap with uncanny lightness that appears to border on the power of flight. When in human form, they easily blend with the surrounding community, which makes them very dangerous indeed. Gargans. Blood on the ceiling, guts on the wall, must have been a Gargan. Gargans, like Fletters, belong to the class of particularly dangerous vampires whose strength exceeds even that of the fiends. An encounter with one of their number almost always ends in death, which is why there are not many eyewitness accounts for them. From the city guard reports written up by Lan Exeter, describing the attacks committed in the city in 1104 by 3 Gargans, later killed by a certain Oliver of Gullet Witcher, it seems these horrible monsters do not content themselves with drinking the blood of their victims. The investigators concluded from the blood and the guts strewn around the entire crime scenes that Gargans tear their victims to shreds with great delight and muck around in their bloody entrails. Gargans belong to the group of creatures known as lesser vampires. They often gather around themselves members of other subspecies of lesser vampires, acting in such situations as the leaders of the pack. They are by and large unable to run, but can jump a great distance and often attack their prey in that way. During combat, they usually keep their distance from their foes, trying to incapacitate them using a blast of mental energy, provoking visions that beguile and disorient. Do they do that? Have I fought one of these guys before? I think they did. Before grappling a Gargan, one should drink the black blood potion and stock up on vampire oil. It should also be remembered that Samum and Moon Dust Bombs are also effective against mental attacks. Flutters. These things are creepy as shit. The deceased corpse was completely mutilated. All that remained of the nose was the hole clotted with blood. One eye socket had been chewed beyond all recognition. The mandible had been torn off. Seeing this, Sergeant Dove vomited profusely, and the administration of smelling salts was required. The investigation had been discontinued and the deed attributed to supernatural being. Fletters are classified as lesser vampires, though weaker than the rest of their ilk in every aspect from their physiognomic to this physiognomic. They should not be underestimated, for they are very, very dangerous. Fletters cannot be mistaken for any other creature with their wide, toothy jaws, flat, unpleasant faces, and completely hairless, often warty bodies. These vampires mainly fight with their teeth and claws, flailing them blindly and not stopping even when their victim is already dead. Even a solitary Fletter is strong enough to take down a trained soldier. Compared to other vampires, Fletters display meager intelligence, seen most clearly in the mindless rage which causes them to try with all of their might to attack and tear to shreds any weaker being. When fighting Fletters, it is best to take advantage of their particular method of movement. These creatures do not run, but they do try to catch their prey and knock it over by leaping. Knowing this behavior, one can plan the fight appropriately and not let oneself be caught by surprise. They are vulnerable to black blood and vampire oil. Yep. Detlef. It was horrifying to watch. That gentleman suddenly turned into a ghastly beast with claws and tore those men to shreds. He's under the Bestiary instead of the characters? That is a surprise. With claws and tore those men to shreds with precision of a master butcher. Detlef is a higher vampire and one of the most terrifying creatures the world has ever known. Some vampires of his sort live among men easily and inconspicuously, sometimes even gaining the respect and admiration of their community. Yet even the most civilized vampire can be incredibly dangerous if provoked, and Detlef was far from civilized. When in his two-legged form, Detlef strikes in surprising and unique ways, so one must be extremely alert and attentive. His razor-sharp claws, wielded with great strength and precision, are his chief weapons, yet he can also wield weapons of a human devising with extraordinary skill. Like all higher vampires, Detlef can turn into fog and envelop opponents. When fighting a vampire in this form, one must watch out for magic puddles and attacks from the air. When wounded, Detlef tends to assume his wing form, using his powerful appendages to stun his foes near effortlessly. One must remember higher vampires are immortal creatures and thus do not fear their lives while fighting, meaning they take every risk. They are able to turn invisible and can regenerate strength during combat. All in all, they are extremely difficult foes even for a Witcher. And the characters. The Lady of the Lake. She was in the first game, and I know I fucked her in the first game. Like 100% confident in this. Yep, right there. Geralt had first encountered the Lady of the Lake when his search for what had been stolen from Kaer Morhen took him to the village known as Murky Waters. There, a mysterious female being dwelled in the murky depths of the village namesake's water and watched over the residents living on the shores. Such was their esteem for their underwater guardian, they erected a monument in her honor. The Lady of the Lake once had many knights in her service, but they all had died, as valiant knights tend to do during campaigns in far-off lands. She now lived in near solitude, so was glad to accept Geralt's company, the Witcher being someone she liked and respected. Once the Witcher had believed the Lady of the Lake was some kind of local goddess, but the reunion at Cielve do not remember what the whatever. Made him realize she did not dwell only in Murky Waters. Instead, the Lady of the Lake calls home any place where virtue and chivalry are honored. The hermit of that place, the hermit who lived on the Isle of Lake Cielve, or whatever, had become the guardian of the duchy's 5 principal virtues. This virtuous man watched over the boulders on which the virtues had been engraved and put any knights who came through a trial to prove they embodied them. When the Witcher arrived at the isle and met with the hermit, it seemed to him it was not their first encounter. Only later did he know how right he was. The hermit turned out to be the Lady of the Lake, the mysterious being whom Geralt had once met in Murky Waters. After Geralt passed the hermit's trials, the holy man changed form and showed his true face, then bestowed upon Geralt a gift, the sword Erendite. Vivienne de Tabret. Vivienne de Tabret was Anna Henrietta's lady-in-waiting. She was a tight-lipped, secretive, inaccessible person, but her beauty fascinated men. Geralt saw proof of this when he took a contract from... Oh shit, what was this guy's name again? Guillaume? Whatever. Who was in love... Guillaume? Fuck, what the fuck was this guy's name? Because it's not Guillaume. Who was in love with her and suspected she might be afflicted by a curse. In order to get an audience with her, Geralt had to take part in the Knight's Tourney, where Vivienne was acting as the patroness. By following Vivienne and examining the evidence, Geralt discovered... I'm going to call him Guam. Guam with an L. Was right. Vivienne had indeed been struck by a powerful curse before she was even born. This curse caused her to turn into a bird whenever the moon was out. Geralt listened to the story of the curse, then offered to try to lift it. He warned her that this would not be a simple matter. The curse could be transferred to another, but Vivienne did not want to agree to that. It could also be removed entirely, but then it was possible Vivienne would only have a few years left to live. Geralt kept the information Vivienne had confided to him secret, even though Guilliman... what was this guy's name? Was determined to help her in any way he could. Whatever, had tried to convince Vivienne he only wanted what was best for her, but she preferred to remain independent. She and Geralt conducted the ritual together, lifting the curse. Any others? Are we good here? Alright. I think we have officially read everything and probably almost everything in this entire game so far. Well, we'll just call this a chapter right now. Here's to you guys, and thanks for watching.